Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. I have 35 Christmas DIYs for you today. All of my favorite Christmas DIYs that I did last year, all wrapped into one mega video. I hope that you guys enjoy it and get some fun Christmas inspiration. Just as a couple reminders, if you are looking for any of the links that I mention in my video, make sure that you find the original video and I will have them all linked down below so you can find which DIY you're looking for, and the link will be in my description box. Also, as a quick reminder, I no longer sell my vinyl decals. If you are looking for the Cricut links, make sure you go to the original video, but I no longer sell the actual vinyl decals. So just keep that in mind while you're watching the video. I do mention it several times because that is what I was doing last year during this time. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our Christmas mega video. You're going to grab a tag sign from the Dollar Tree. They have some in some Christmas prints right now, so you should be able to find them. I'm going to paint this in my Waverly chalk paint in lacquer. I'm just going to do one good coat of it, and then I used my little heat gun to dry the paint so much faster than it normally would just drying on its own. I'm going to go ahead and distress my sign mostly around the edges. I wanted that wood look around the border of the sign, and then I did sand down the front of the sign quite a bit so that it would have that scratchy look to it. And then I'm going to take this burlap that I got from Hobby Lobby, I believe last year, but I know that they carry these all year long. I'm going to take that and I'm going to hot glue it down to the back. I made sure to pull tight so that the burlap was pretty tight around it. I'm going to take this buffalo check ribbon that I also got from Hobby Lobby. I know that these were out at the Dollar Tree. I don't know if it's there right now, but I know that it was there during the fall time. I'm going to put that on top of the burlap and just hot glue it down. I'm then going to take some white string. I'm going to wrap that around 3 times and tie a little tiny bow right in the center. I printed out the word Noel for my computer. I will have that as a free printable down in the description box below. And I'm going to show you how you can use this rather than use a Cricut if you don't have a Cricut. If you do have a Cricut, go ahead and use that. But this is a great alternative to any of the projects that we do using a Cricut. Take the printable and you want to scribble all over the back of it with a pencil, making sure to get everywhere where the words are, where the letters are, and then you're going to put that where you want it on your sign and you're going to start tracing out your letters. You do want to press pretty firm to make sure that the pencil does transfer through the back. Now you could use carbon paper or transfer paper for this. I didn't have any of that, so this is what I did instead. My handwriting is not good at all, so by all means, if you have a good free hand, do that. But for me personally, that's one of the reasons why I like using my Cricut so much, is because I can get the pretty font without trying to freehand it, because I am not a good freehander. I can barely do this method as it is. So this method works perfectly if you don't have a Cricut. If you do though, or if you have stickers, that would work too. And you are just going to start tracing that over with whatever color that you want. I chose black. This is just a black Sharpie from the Dollar Tree. And then I will go over it with some black, with a black paint pen. Don't mind my head getting in the way. Apparently I need to see an eye doctor because I had to be so close up to this to be able to see the lines. And then you're just going to begin filling in the word with your paint pen, or you could just use paint. Whatever you have on hand is definitely going to work. And I just filled in all the letters with that black paint pen. I believe it's from the brand Sharpie, and I just got it from Walmart. After that, I'm going to take this other ribbon. I believe I got this from Walmart, and it is wired, so it is super easy to manipulate, which I love. I can make the tails curly, and I just cut out one piece to make a loop for the bow, and then I cut out another piece for the tails of the bow. I'm going to put the loop on top of the tails, and then I'm going to take some twine and I'm going to just tie them together with that. I'm going to use some hot glue and hot glue that to the top of my sign, and then I'm going to twist my tails and hot glue those down. And I absolutely love the way that this little sign turned out. It's cold outside, but the fire keeps us warm. We can spend the night
mistletoe, and I've gotten you a present that I put under the tree. Tomorrow it is Christmas, the first for you and me. The snow is falling down, and the storm is on its way.
For this next project, I am taking this little sign that I got from Walmart. It was on clearance. I got it several months back while it was on clearance for about $1. And I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint and plaster, and I'm going to paint this entire thing. Besides the back, it's going to be covered up anyways, so you won't see it. But I am going to do 2 coats using my heat gun in between coats to get that dry, because who has time to wait for paint to dry? I know with 3 kids, I do not. So I'm going to take these jumbo popsicle sticks that I also got from Walmart, and I am going to stain these in the Craft Smart stain in Barnwood Brown. And I'm also going to use that same stain to distress my sign. I absolutely love the way that this turned out, because I feel like it looks like actual wood that was painted white. That's all chipped, and it's been sitting outside for a long time, and all the white paint is coming off of it. I thought it looked so cool by the end of this. So after I'm done with that, I'm going to take those popsicle sticks and I'm going to start cutting them down to size of the sign. Now, at first I was hoping that all these popsicle sticks were going to lay flat, but the popsicle sticks did not completely fit in the sign. There was going to be a little bit of space where I was either going to have to cut down a popsicle stick, and I didn't want a popsicle stick that was way smaller in there. I guess I could have just put it at the bottom and you wouldn't have been able to tell, but I decided to stack them on top of each other so that they kind of looked like a little shutter, and I thought this way turned out super cute as well. So you can see that I just have them slightly stacked on top of each other, and all I did was place the hot glue at the bottom where the popsicle sticks would overlap. And after I'm done with that, I'm going to take these cute little faux trees that I got from the Target Dollar Spot and from Hobby Lobby. The ones that I am painting are from Target Dollar Spot. I wanted them to all match and look flocked, so I'm just taking some of my white chalk paint and flocking the trees. And then I also go in with that same Barnwood Brown stain from Craft Smart to paint all the bottoms of the trees just so that they all match. And then I'm going to take the last of one of these little red truck Christmas ornaments, and I am going to take a wooden dowel and my miter shears, and I'm going to cut 2 pieces that I can hot glue to the back of my truck. This will give it some stability to stand, and then I'm able to put it towards the front of my sign rather than having to glue the truck to the back of the sign. And then I'm going to hot glue the dowels down to the sign towards the front. And then I'm going to take those trees and I'm just going to begin hot gluing them in just a random order. I really just kind of placed whatever tree where I wanted it. And then I'm going to take that decal that I made before and I'm going to cut them out separately. I was trying to make it so that they were all going to come out in one piece, and I messed up on sizing a little bit for this sign, so I had to cut down each line individually and place it on the sign.
But as long as you're around, everything will be okay. 'Cause all I wanna do is spend this holiday with you. Tomorrow it is Christmas, the first for me and you. I've longed for this moment to have you for myself in a cabin out in nowhere, just us and no one else. I've decorated everything.
I'm going to take this sign that I got from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to take some scrapbook paper that I got from Hobby Lobby in a Farmhouse pack of scrapbook paper. I love the herringbone pattern lately. I don't know what it is, but I have absolutely loved incorporating this pattern into all of my home decor. So I'm just going to start by taking the sign apart. I'm going to trace my sign on top of my scrapbook paper and cut that out. I used a glue stick to adhere my scrapbook paper to the back of my sign. Once that's done, I'm going to take my antique wax from Waverly and I'm going to distress the frame just along the inside and outside just to give it more of a rustic look. I'm then going to take a little bit of hot glue on two corners and I'm going to push the back of my sign into the frame. I'm going to take this tree ornament that you can get from Michael's. It was $2.99, but I believe I got it on a 40% off discount. And I am going to hot glue a little Jenga piece that you can get from the Dollar Tree to the back of my tree. I wanted my tree to stand out and look more like a little shadow box rather than gluing it right to the sign itself. And then I just added some hot glue to that Jenga piece and attached it to my sign. I made a little bow from this ribbon that you can get from Michael's and I cut off the ends, dovetailed it, and then hot glued it to the top of my tree. And I absolutely love the way this little rustic tree sign turned out.
Tomorrow it is Christmas, the first for you and me. Another year went by, but the difference this time is that ever since July, I've been happier than I have ever been. It's safe to say that my love for you is true. Tomorrow it is Christmas, the first for me and you.
I'm going to take my Craft Smart stain in brown and I'm going to go over the entire frame of this little wood sign. I picked this up from Joann's. I don't remember the exact price of it, but it was very affordable. I picked it up, I think, like towards the beginning of the year. So it's been a while and I just haven't known what to do with it, and I thought this would be perfect for this project. So I'm just going to go through and stain the entire frame, and then I'm going to take some painter's tape and tape around the frame, and I'm going to paint the inside with my Waverly chalk paint in white. And I am going to do kind of a rough one coat of it. I wanted some of that natural wood to peek through, so I didn't cover it up entirely. I wanted it to look a little bit messy and rustic. And then I'm going to make sure that is dry using my heat gun, and then I'm going to take that painter's tape off, and then I'm going to take a brush that had some of that stain on it, and I'm going to go in between those lines a little bit just to give them a little bit more definition. And then I'm going to take these clear stamps that I picked up from Hobby Lobby, and I could not find my ink pad to save my life. I have no idea where it's at. So instead I decided to use some black paint and I just painted on the back of the stamps. And I'm going to take this ribbon that I also got from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to cut out a piece and I'm going to begin stamping the word peace on it. The one thing I did really like about these stamps is you didn't get the outside edges stamped onto your project, if that makes sense. You know, with normal stamps you can get the little corners and everything onto your project, which is fairly annoying, and these did not do that at all, which I was pleasantly surprised with. Now I'm going to take this little wreath that I also got from Hobby Lobby and these floral picks that again I got from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to start putting this together, putting some picks in there, dressing it up a little bit. You guys, I have to share with you the most amazing thing that I ever found on Amazon. If you are a crafter, you need a little mini vacuum for your crafting table, especially during the Christmas time when glitter is absolutely everywhere. I picked this guy up from Amazon and I used it in between all of my projects when there was so much glitter all over my table, and it works so amazing. I don't know what I did before this because now I'm literally vacuuming in between like every time I'm using some glitter. it keeps me happy, keeps me sane, and keeps me from getting glitter absolutely everywhere. So I'm going to take some red berries that just came on a pick from Hobby Lobby. I'm also going to intertwine those through my wreath, just putting them on both sides. After that's done, I'm going to hot glue my ribbon that says peace onto the back of my wreath. I just made sure that I pulled tight, and then I just re-glued where I needed to, and so that the ribbon was nice and tight on there. I then took this ribbon and tied a little cute bow with it. I also took some twine and made a bow with that as well. I wrapped it around my fingers probably about 4 or 5 times, and then I'm just going to tie a knot in the middle. And then I'm going to take my twine bow and I'm going to hot glue it on top of my ribbon bow. And then I'm going to take that entire thing and hot glue it to the middle of my wreath. I'm going to cut off the excess ribbon from my peace sign. I'm going to clean up the tails of my bow. And then I'm going to take some of that same ribbon that I used before. I'm going to loop it through my wreath. I'm going to hot glue the ends together. And then I'm going to hot glue it to the back of my sign. I just looped it through the little hanger that came on it and then just hot glued that right down to the back. And that is how my little wreath peace sign turned out. I absolutely love this, especially because I can remove the wreath and put a different wreath on it for any season with the sign. I just think it turned out absolutely adorable.
In a cabin out in nowhere, just us and no one else. I've decorated everything till we're perfect for this week. Tomorrow it is Christmas, the first for you and me.
Next DIY, you're going to need one of Dollar Tree's little square drawer cube things. You're going to take some scrapbook paper. The best way to do this is to cut it in strips of the correct size of all 4 sides, and you're just going to start gluing them down all around all 4 sides of the box, and then you can cut out a separate piece for the top. You don't need to worry about the bottom. Nobody's going to see the bottom. So just cover all 4 sides with your scrapbook paper of choice and then cover the top as well. And after you've done that, I'm going to take this ribbon that I got from Michael's and I'm going to tie it around the box, and I tied a double knot at the top. I'm going to take a pine stem that I got from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to cut it in half, and then I'm going to take these red berry ties that you can also get from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to make a little garland piece. I'm just basically going to twist them all together and then hot glue them to the tops of my little presents.
Tomorrow it is Christmas, the first for me and you. I longed for this moment to have you for myself in a cabin.
You're going to grab these 2 wooden tags from the Dollar Tree. Obviously, they do not have the 4th of July ones anymore, but they do have lots and lots of Christmas ones. Typically, they always have some sort of tag shaped sign there. So I just took 2 of these, cut off the twine hangers, and then started painting them. So I'm going to paint one of them in my Waverly chalk paint in white, and then the other one I'm going to paint in the Waverly chalk paint in steel. I took some of this wired twine that you can also get from the Dollar Tree and some of these wooden beads, and I began stringing these on there. I wanted to make a little snowman, so I'm going to take the head of the snowman, and he's going to have 10 beads on that one. The middle section will have 14 beads, and the bottom section will have 18 beads. And I just twisted the twine at the top to finish it off and then cut off any excess to make it look more like a snowman. I took that same ribbon from the previous project and I hot glued the head and the middle part of the body together. I took the ribbon and wrapped it around the middle of those and gave him a cute little ribbon scarf. I then began just hot gluing it straight to the sign. And I hot glued his little scarf down so it would stay in place. For the other sign, I started making some stripes with some painter's tape. I did one larger stripe and one smaller stripe on the right side, and then I also did the exact same thing to the bottom. Since the snowman tag will be overlapping this tag, I didn't need to worry about doing the stripes to the other side. So you're just going to follow those exact steps on the bottom. And then I decided to distress it just a little bit, so I went around the edges of both of the signs just to give it more of a weathered and rustic look. And then I felt like my snowman was missing something, so I found these buttons and I painted them black. I'm going to hot glue those down to his little body. I'm going to add some hot glue to the back of the snowman sign, and I'm going to hot glue that down, making sure that the two holes in each sign are overlapping. I cut out this Let It Snow decal for my Cricut, and I'm going to add this to the bottom portion of the bottom sign. I added some nautical rope. I just strung it through the back of the signs, tied a big knot, and then cut off the excess. I got this ribbon from Hobby Lobby. I thought it was super adorable, so I'm going to cut off a little piece to make a loop. I'm going to hot glue that loop together, and then I'm going to cut off another piece for the tails. I'm going to bunch them together and wrap some twine around it, tying a knot, and hot glue that down. And then I'm also going to hot glue the tails down to the side and the top of the sign.
Making our Christmas memories. I've been working so much lately, I can barely find the time to sleep. Yeah, I spend my time running around, keeping people pleased. But this is my favorite holiday. It's a chance to start over new, 'cause I missed you, so I'm letting go of everything but you. These are the good times with you, baby.
You are going to grab some canvases. You can grab these either from the Dollar Tree, or I grabbed these ones from Michael's in a pack of 10, I believe, either 8 to 10. They are basically around the same price. I want to say if you can get the ones on Michael for sale, that they're maybe a little over $1 a piece depending on the sale that they're having. I like these ones better just because they have a ridge around the frame instead of the ones from the Dollar Tree where they're just flat, if that makes sense. So I did go through and remove all the staples and the canvas. You don't have to remove the staples, but I did just because I didn't want the staples scratching up my walls. Now typically the front of these don't have staples, at least in previous packs that I've gotten, but for some reason these ones did have staples on the front. So I did remove the staples from the front, and then I placed some wood glue in there just to kind of mask those holes a little bit. For the most part it worked, and after everything was painted and everything was said and done, you couldn't tell. So I just tried to get those little holes as smooth as possible and gave the entire frame just a little bit of sanding to get any kind of little splinters off there. Like I said, I added the wood filler to all four corners where the little holes were, where the staples were. You're going to do the same thing to all three canvases, and then you're going to paint them. I painted mine in the Waverly chalk paint and plaster, and I just gave them one coat each. I wasn't worried about full coverage and wanted more of a messy and rustic look to them, so I just gave them one kind of messy coat of paint. Now after those are dry, I'm going to take 2 of the canvases and I'm going to make these into little shutters. I grabbed these jumbo popsicle sticks that you can get from Walmart. I cut them down to size to fit snugly into the middle of your canvas. It is a little bit tricky to get them the exact size of what you need, so you will have to do quite a bit of trimming on each one. But I'm going to place some hot glue on both sides and stick them into the frame. Kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm just making sure that each one is angled. Now you don't have to leave a little gap in between each one. You could just lay them out even flat if you wanted. Really, whatever you wanted to do. I made sure to secure the back with some hot glue as well, just to make sure that they are nice and sturdy. And after I did that, I took that same plaster chalk paint and I just went over all the popsicle sticks in that paint. So you're going to leave your third canvas completely empty. I took some clear Gorilla Glue and some hot glue, and I'm going to hot glue two of those ends together. So the canvas that has nothing in the middle is going to be your middle piece, and then you're going to hot glue and use a stronghold glue of some sort and glue those to each side of your blank canvas. I'm going to flip that over and I'm going to use my staple gun to secure even more. I did 3 staples on each side. And then I'm also going to take some hot glue and a popsicle stick and hot glue those together just so that it gives it even more stability and strength. And that is it for my little shutter wall decor. I don't know exactly what you want to call it, but I thought this would be so cute with different wreaths in it for different seasons. I have seen things like this at Hobby Lobby, and I thought this would be so much fun just to make my own, and I could decorate it each season the way that I wanted to.
This year, it's just gonna be you and me. Hang by the fire and chill. Isn't this how it's supposed to be? Making our Christmas memories. Oh, and I've been longing to hold you close. Forget about everyone else. Isn't this how it's supposed to be? Making our Christmas memories. Oh, oh, la, da, 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 oh, oh, la, da, da, da.
I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint and plaster, and I'm going to start painting this 12 by 12 board that I have. You don't necessarily need a piece of wood for this. You could use some poster board if you had it. I just happen to have a piece of wood, so that is what I went with today. I did one rough coat with that. After that, I'm going to take some of my painter's tape and some Waverly black chalk paint, and I just split my board into 3 different sections. I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to do a kind of dry brush technique. I don't want the lines to be fully saturated. I want them to look messy and rustic. And I am just going to drag my brush along each side of that painter's tape on the ends. Now you don't necessarily need the painter's tape. It just kind of helped me center where exactly I wanted my lines to be. For my third line, I just kind of eyeballed it, hoping for a straight line, and for the most part it worked. I just did the exact same thing, kind of doing a dry brush technique. This was my version of a semi-buffalo check kind of sign, and I'm actually really happy with the way it turned out. So I just flipped my sign over and started doing the lines the opposite direction. Again, I just did a line in the middle and then a line on each side. I mostly just used the painter's tape to help give me a bit of a guide and some direction, and to be able to space out my lines evenly. It doesn't have to be perfect. Your lines may not be straight, just like mine, but in the end, it doesn't really even matter with how rustic and messy it looks. I think it looks great. And then I just took my black chalk paint and just went around all of the sides with that. Now I'm going to take this garland that I picked up from Michael's and then this wreath that I got from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to undo the garland. I probably could have just left it the way it was, honestly, but I unwrapped the entire thing and began just wrapping around all the pieces that were separate. I just wrapped them around so it was just one long garland, and I began attaching it to my wreath. I used some wire to hold everything down. I'm not a huge fan of hot glue when it comes to wreaths because I do like to reuse them, and this is a great project that I could take apart later and use the garland for something separate and then use the wreath for something separate. And then I took some of this berry garland that I got from Hobby Lobby as well, and I just looped that around my entire wreath. I took some of this burlap ribbon that you can also get from Hobby Lobby. I just looped it through the wreath and then hot glued the ends together, and I adjusted where I wanted my wreath to hang on the sign, and then I just hot glued the ribbon to the back of my sign.
Making our Christmas memories. I've been wrapping presents for you. I've been hanging marbles in the tree, and I've lit my house with Christmas lights, so you should come back home to me. And when we wake up in the morning, I'm gonna play those carols that you love. We'll be singing all the melodies until the sun comes up. These are the good times with you.
You're gonna grab one of Dollar Tree's faux mini trees. Now these are pretty sad and sparse looking trees, so you definitely want to find something to make it look more full and fill it in. I had some leftover piece of garland that you can get from the Dollar Tree, but I haven't been able to find any more. So I just cut up the pieces that I had and just twisted them around in the areas where I thought needed a little bit more help. And then I also took these little pine stems that you can get from Hobby Lobby. I know they also have things similar to this at the Dollar Tree. Like I said, I just cannot find them anywhere. So this is what I used. I actually like that I added these in there. It gives the tree a couple different colors, gives it a little bit more texture and difference in branches. So I like the way that that turned out. And then I'm going to go ahead and make myself a beaded garland. I get these beads off of Amazon. Link is always in the description box. I just added beads to some white string. I added some red berries and some mini cone berry picks. I got both of these from Hobby Lobby at half off, and I'm just going to start by removing the little ends on these cone and berry stems, and I'm just going to begin twisting them around the garland. I did add these mini ornaments that you can get from Walmart. They're $1.98, and I just tied those on with the little hanger that it came on, and then I just cut off the excess twine that was left at the top. I also got these jingle bells from Hobby Lobby, and I thought they were so cute and rustic, so I added some of these onto my garland as well. This garland is so easy to do. The most time-consuming thing about making it was adding all the beads onto the string itself, but other than that, this is super simple and easy to make. And then the last thing I did, I took those red berries and just started twisting them around the garland itself, just to add some more red and color to the garland. I thought that these were so cute to be able to put on anything that you want. You want to add a little berry here and there. These are the perfect little guides for that. So I just grabbed this little bucket that you can get at the Dollar Tree. I did rub off one of the sides that said Flower and Gardens with some straight acetone nail polish. Was really all I did. I added some floral foam, dug a little hole out, added some hot glue, and put my tree right inside there. I grabbed some Spanish moss that you can also get from the Dollar Tree and added that around to cover up the floral foam. I then began stringing my garland around the tree, just working my way all the way up to the top. I I grabbed this ribbon that you can also get from Hobby Lobby, and I just began twisting it around the tree, starting from the bottom and going all the way to the top. I then took this star that you can get from the Target dollar spot. It comes in this cute pack of ornaments, and I believe it was about $5. I then made this little decal that says "Oh Christmas Tree" from my Cricut. I will have the link to these Cricut images in the description box below. If you have a Cricut, you'll be able to get them. I am still working on trying to figure out how to get these images to anybody else that does not have a Cricut, so be patient and please bear with me while I do that. But like I said, if you do have a Cricut, I will link that in the description box below.
Baby, this year it's just gonna be you and me. Hang by the fire and chill. Isn't this how it's supposed to be? Making our Christmas memories. Oh, and I've been longing to hold you close. Forget about everyone else. Isn't this how it's supposed to be? Making our Christmas memories. Oh, oh, la da da da, oh, 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 la da da da. Making our Christmas memories. Yes, these are the good times with you.
For this next one, you're going to take one of these long signs that you can get from the Dollar Tree, whether that be a scarecrow one like I had left over from fall, or if you've been able to snag one of the Christmas ones. I'm going to paint that entire sign with one coat of my plaster chalk paint. And then I'm going to take one of these windmills that I got from the Dollar Tree as well. This is one that I had left over from spring, so I'm just taking it and I'm going to try and attempt to make it look a little bit more galvanized. I'm taking my chalk paint in Silver Lining and Elephant from Waverly, and I'm going in with Silver Lining first, dabbing along the entire thing. After I've got that on there, I'm going to take my Elephant chalk paint and do the same thing. I'm just going to dab off the excess and then dab along all of the blades. And then I'm going to go in with more of a round and natural hairbrush, and I'm going to take my white Waverly chalk paint and I'm going to do the exact same thing, just dabbing along all of the blades. After I've done that, I'm going to take my Waverly wax in Antique and I'm just going to distress it a little bit, make it look rusted and old. So I'm just going to make sure to hit all of the edges of all the blades. Now I cut out a stencil from my Cricut. If you have big letter stencils, perfect, by all means use those. I do not, so this was my way around it without having to go out and buy anything. So I just cut out the words Noel. I did not cut out the O because I am going to use that windmill as my O. So I just placed the vinyl where I want it, or if you have the stencil, just place the stencil exactly where you want it to be. I'm going to take that same plaster chalk paint and I'm going to go around each letter on the outside of each letter. This is just a little technique that I've done to prevent bleeding, and I found that it really does help me. So like I said, I'm just going to take that chalk paint and lacquer and I'm going to give each letter a good coat and a half. I didn't want to go too overboard with it, so I did one coat and then just kind of touched up where I needed to for the second coat. I'm going to wait for that to dry and then I'm going to peel off my vinyl. After I've done that, I'm going to go through and distress the sign. Now I did draw on some lines for the sign. I probably should have done this before I did my stencil, but you know, you live and you learn when you're crafting. But I'm just taking my Waverly chalk paint and ink and I'm just going to distress the sides and the edges, and then I am going to draw over those pencil lines that I had made. I took my sandpaper and I distressed my sign a ton. I wanted each letter to look really worn and scratched up, so I made sure to go over those pretty hard. And when I did this, some of the red paint did smudge a little bit, so I did end up fixing that with just some more of my plaster chalk paint. I'm going to take some hot glue and hot glue my windmill right down to the sign where the O would be. And after that, I decided to decorate it up a little bit with some twine. I just wrapped around 2 times on the top and the bottom, securing it with hot glue on the back. And that is it for my little Noel sign.
Just you and nobody else. it's gonna be you and me.
I got this little sleigh from the Target dollar spot. It was $3. I'm going to paint it with my Waverly chalk paint in white, and then I'm going to add the Waverly antique wax to the handle and to the wood part of the sled. And I did do about 3 coats of the white chalk paint. And then for the antique wax, I just brush it on and then wipe the excess off with a paper towel. I began distressing my sleigh just with that same antique wax, just focusing the majority of it on the edges of the sleigh, and then I did go over the top just a little bit, and then I went over it with some sandpaper just to give it some distressing. I got these mini wreaths from Hobby Lobby and this berry garland from Michael's, and I'm just going to make a little wreath with it. I just cut off some of the berry garland and then started wrapping it around my little wreath. I hot glued that down to the sled. I grabbed this ribbon that you can also get at Michael's, and I hot glued that to my wreath. I also made this decal that says "Over the Hills We Go." I thought it was so cute, and I just added that to the bottom, and that is it for this project. I got these large plywood circles from Hobby Lobby. It came in a pack of 3. I used this Art Minds chalk paint in indigo and then my Waverly chalk paint in silver lining, and I just mixed a little bit of those two together. I added some painter's tape to my circle, and I'm going to paint half of that in that blue color. I wanted to change things up a little bit from my usual red decor, and I thought this was really pretty. I absolutely love this color. And I've been wanting to make one of these round signs for a really long time, so I'm so happy that I finally was able to do that. I removed the painter's tape, added some more, and then I'm going to add that same brown stain that I used in my first project, and I'm going to paint the other half this color. After I'm done with that, I'm going to add some more painter's tape because I wanted to add another stripe, so I just went a little bit above the brown side and then a little bit below the blue, and I'm going to add a stripe of my silver lining chalk paint to there. And then I took these Christmas picks that you can also get from Hobby Lobby. I took 2 of them and I tied them together with some wire. Then I'm taking this gray buffalo check ribbon that I got from Hobby Lobby again. Apparently this whole, thing is all Hobby Lobby. And I decided to make a little bow with it. Now, there wasn't a particular way that I did this. In fact, I was basically just kind of winging it. I made 2 loops and then I just hot glued the loops together and tied them together with a piece of twine, and then I cut off some tails for my bow, and then I also tied the tails onto my bow. And then I still wasn't super happy with the way that the sign was looking, so I took some white chalk paint and I decided to distress the entire bottom half over the blue. I just wanted to give it a little bit more dimension, make it look a little bit more rustic. I just did a little bit of a heavier dry brushing over the entire bottom. I drilled a hole in the top of my sign so that I could loop some wire through there, because trying to hot glue this greenery, these picks down to the sign just was not happening. So I just hot glued the wire to the back of my sign, and then I hot glued my bow directly in the middle of my picks. I cut out this little decal that says "Have yourself a merry little Christmas." I put both of those on my sign. Now I will have a free printable linked down below for you, and then as well the link to the Cricut Design Space version of this if you have a Cricut. This is a Dollar Tree DIY, so I just grabbed a pack of these gift boxes that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I grabbed a stretch canvas that you can also get from the Dollar Tree. I just removed the canvas from the frame. You can remove the staples, but I wasn't too worried about that just because you weren't going to see them anyways. I painted my frame in that same brown stain that you can get from Craftsmart. I picked mine up from Michael's, and I absolutely love this stain because it dries fast and it doesn't have any kind of smell. I took my Waverly chalk paint and plaster and I just dry brushed over the entire frame. After that, I just kind of measured out where I wanted my frame to go on the sign, and I did have to trim the box down a little bit. And then I just took some hot glue all over my frame and then lined it up to where I wanted it to be on the little sign and just pressed that down. Now to clean up the back a little bit, I wanted to add the canvas to the back. It just makes it look a little bit more clean and finished. So I just hot glued a piece of canvas all around to the back of it and then cut off the excess. And it just looks so much better. You wouldn't even be able to tell that it was a gift box that I used for the sign. Now I took these picks that I got from Walmart and I just cut this entire thing up. I did tie them together using a wire and some twine just to give it something extra for it to be able to stick down to the sign with the hot glue. And then I just made another little twine bow, wrapping it around my fingers about 4 or 5 times, cutting that off, and then taking another piece of twine and tying a knot in the middle. And I just hot glued that down to the middle of the greenery, cut off the excess twine, and that is it. Going to take these signs that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I took 2 of them, so I'm going to take 2 of them and I'm going to break off one side on each little sign. They come apart really easy, and then on that long side you just kind of have to tear it and it just tears the paper off. Now I took some leftover popsicle sticks that I had from the previous project, and I am going to use that to hot glue these together. So just took a little piece and hot glued each side together, and then took another little piece of popsicle stick and hot glued it on the bottom. And then I added some hot glue in that seam in the middle and then smoothed it over with my finger using one of Dollar Tree's little finger protectors for hot glue. And then I painted this entire thing in my Waverly chalk paint in truffle. I painted the inside and the outside, making sure to get that all nice and covered, and if you really wanted to, you could paint the bottom as well. I didn't, just because I was feeling particularly lazy that day, but you could definitely finish it off and paint the bottom. Now I'm going to take a mason jar and I'm going to go through and scratch it on up with some sandpaper to hopefully get that paint to stick a little bit better to it. I'm going to paint this in my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I'm going to give this thing a good 2 coats. I did paint 3 of these, 2 of them white and 1 of them in my elephant colored chalk paint from Waverly. Figured I didn't need to show myself painting mason jars. You can just see how I did one and get the gist of it. I also painted all the lids in my black Waverly chalk paint and ink. I did give my box a little bit of distressing with my white Waverly chalk paint, basically just taking whatever was remaining on my sponge brush and running it over all the sides of the little box. And then once that second coat was finished on my mason jar, I went over it with a little bit of my elephant chalk paint to give it a little bit of distressing. And then I also Mod Podged all of my lids and all of my mason jars just to make sure that the paint wasn't going to come off and it wasn't going to get all scratched up. And after that was done, I'm going to take some twine and tie it around the mason jar and wrap it around that lid. I tie it off and cut off the excess, and then I'm going to make a twine bow. So I'm going to wrap it around my fingers about 7 times. I'm going to take an extra piece of twine and I'm going to wrap that around the middle and tie it in a double knot, and then I'm just going to hot glue that to my little mason jar, and that is done. Now you can fill these with whatever flowers that you want, whether that be for spring, fall, summer, Christmas, Halloween, whatever your heart desires, and you can keep this up around all year long. I am going to take these beads that I got from Amazon. They're just a natural wood bead, and I'm going to take some wire that I got from Walmart, and I'm going to make myself a cute little ornament with it. So I basically just put on as many beads as I needed to make it large enough for the little red truck in the middle. I hot glued one of the beads in place just to make it so that all the beads weren't flying off everywhere, and then I took the little red truck that you can get from the Dollar Tree. It comes in a pack of 4, and I looped the little hanger on it through the wire and cut off the excess and just kind of wrapped it around the back. I then took some cute buffalo check ribbon that I had and made a little bow, and then I'll also use some of this ribbon to use as the hanger for the ornament. I do put the little hanger on first, tying it in a knot at the top, and then hot gluing my bow down to the little beads. This ornament is so easy and simple, and I think it's absolutely adorable. I think that the natural wood bead ornaments have to be some of my absolute favorite this year, and with the little red truck in the middle, I am so excited to hang this on my Christmas tree. This next DIY, I'm going to take these 2 triangles. My husband cut these out so that I didn't have to while I was busy working on my other projects. I'll have the dimensions in the description box below, and I'm going to take these 2 pieces of scrapbook paper that I got from Hobby Lobby. All the scrapbook paper that I get is typically from Hobby Lobby, and I am going to trace those out and cut them out using my craft knife. I'm going to use some glue stick, and I'm going to glue down my paper on top of my triangle. I'm going to let those dry, and I'm going to take these wood slices that you can get from basically any craft store. I'm going to drill a hole in them, and as well we drilled a hole in the triangles on the bottom. I got these skewer sticks from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to hot glue the skewers down into the wood rounds. I then added some beads These are just from Amazon. I put some hot glue into my triangle and then hot glued that down to my skewer stick. And then I basically followed the exact same steps for my second one, although I didn't put as many beads on the second one. I added 4 beads, added some hot glue in between the last 2, and then pushed those together so that those would stay up, and then attached my wood slice to my skewer stick. I took some of my Waverly antique wax and I just distressed the outside of both of my triangles. I also did a little bit of light distressing on the beads just to give it a little extra something. You could leave them plain, but I thought that they looked really cute with a little bit of distressing to them. After that, I'm going to take some twine, I'm going to loop it around my fingers about 2 times, and I'm going to make a cute little twine bow for each of them. I hot glued those down to the very top bead, and I let those dry, and that is it. That is my cute little triangle beaded trees.
The city is covered in snow tonight. Where did my love go? Santa, I'm waiting for him, but he's nowhere inside. And all of the presents are still by the tree. They don't mean a thing till he's here with me. If you know.
So for this next project, I am taking 1x2s. I do start at 9 inches, then I work my way down 8 inches, 7 inches, 6 inches, 5 inches, 4 inches, until I get the smallest piece for the top of my little wooden Christmas tree. So like I said, these are just 1x2s cut down from the biggest piece at 9 inches, and then each piece after that I just make 1 inch shorter. So after I'm done cutting all those out, yes, I did cut these out myself with the saw. I was very proud of myself because normally I make my husband do it. So props to me, I did all these projects on my own. So I'm going to take my Craft Smart wood stain again in brown, and I am going to stain all the pieces of the wood, front, back, sides, everything. They are all going to be covered in this color. And after I'm done with that, I'm taking my Waverly chalk paint in white again, and I wanted to give this a whitewashed look. So I'm going heavy-handed around the corners and the edges, and then I'm slightly dry brushing over the top. It's really simple and easy to do. Just take your paintbrush and dab off the excess on a paper towel, and then just brush your paint along the front. I love the way that this looks. It almost, to me, it looks like it's got a little bit of snow on it, so I thought this turned out so cute. And then I'm going to take some sandpaper and I'm just going to rough up the edges a little bit. I wanted that natural wood to show through, especially on the corners, so I made sure to go a little more heavy-handed on those corners, and then I did go along the edges as well. And then after that, I'm just taking some hot glue and I am going to glue all of my pieces together, starting with the bottom, the biggest piece, and then working my way up. I tried my best to make sure that they were even and centered. I have no idea if they completely are, but it looks good to me, so just do as best as you possibly can. And then after I'm done with that, I did get another couple pieces, a piece for my stem, and then this little platform to use to make it so that my tree can stand up. So I just painted these again with that same stain. I did not end up whitewashing these because I wanted them to look a little different. I wanted them to stand out from the rest of the tree. Like I said, just because that tree looks kind of like it's got snow on it, so I wanted the tree to look snowy, and then the platform and the trunk to look plain. So I'm going to take these wood beads that you can get off Amazon. I'll have them linked down below, and I am going to string them on to some twine, and then I'm going to tie a knot on one end, and I'm going to also make a little tassel with that same twine, and I'm going to use those for the top of my tree. So you can see here I just make a knot on one end, cut the excess off, and then I'm going to make my tassel. So to do this, I just wrap the twine around 2 fingers, and I wrapped it around about 10 times. After I'm done with that, I cut off the excess. I take a little bit of some remaining twine, I wrap that around the top portion of the tassel and tie a knot. Now in this instance, I did use some ribbon to go along with my tassel. So I just put the ribbon on top of it. I tied a knot at the top of the tassel to keep the ribbon in place. Hopefully watching it gives you a better idea of exactly what I did, so you can see how to make these cute ribbon tassels for yourself. After I tied that into place, I'm going to take some excess twine and I'm going to wrap it around the middle so that the ribbon and the twine stay in place. I'm just going to knot that in the back and cut off the excess, and then I will also trim the twine so that the loops are cut apart and everything is even. Then I'm going to take that tassel and take those beads, and I'm going to tie them all together in just one knot, cutting off any excess shorter twine. I wanted the longer twine on there so that I could wrap it around the tree. And I'm just taking it and, like I said, just wrapping it around. I am going to hot glue the twine in the back and then secure it just with some more hot glue. It was really simple and easy, and I loved the way the top of this turned out. I love the buffalo check ribbon and the tassel to go with it. So I'm going to take some of this berry garland that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to wrap the stem in this berry garland. I thought that this gave it such a cute added extra touch. I absolutely love the way that this tree turned out.
Please give him a ride, and I will wait here by the candlelight, 'cause his love is all I need, and my love I can guarantee. So please Santa, bring back my love tonight.
I took this little tree that you can get from the Target dollar spot with some of their other little wood cutouts, trees. I believe they had stockings, some really cute things for only $1. I'm going to take my wire that I got from Walmart and I'm going to string some of these beads on there. I did do a similar project with a little red truck. I will link that video above and below, and I loved the little red truck ornament so much that I had to make one with a tree as well. I just took my beads on the wire and I twisted them together, and then I'm going to take some twine, tie a knot at the end, and hot glue that down to the back of the tree. I'm going to tie another knot at the top of the twine, and I'm going to hot glue that down to where the wire meets in the middle of the ornament. And then I'm going to take some of this ribbon that I got from Joann's. I absolutely love this stuff. I definitely need to go pick myself up some more. And I'm just tying myself a little bow, and I'm going to hot glue that right down at the top. And that's it for this cute little ornament. I absolutely love the natural wood beads, and I'm definitely wanting to incorporate those into my Christmas decor. So I love the way that this DIY turned out.
Sleigh bells ringing and my friends by my side, but it's not the same. Santa,
this little tag right here was my inspiration. I got that from Walmart and I thought it was so cute that I wanted to recreate it in a bigger version. So I'm taking this large tag sign that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to paint it the back in the white Waverly chalk paint. And after I'm done doing that, I'm going to go in with my hot heat gun that I got from Amazon. I'll have it linked down below to make sure that the paint is completely dry before I start my next step, which is I got this large ruler / level. I use that to draw some lines on the sign, and then after I trace it just with the pencil, I did go in with my elephant chalk paint from Waverly, and I just went over the lines that I had previously drawn with that paint, and then I also used that paint to distress my sign. And then I am going to take some sandpaper to fade those lines. Don't mind the remote in hand. This was my 2-year-old telling me to turn on a show. So after I'm done sanding it the way that I wanted it, I took these Christmas trees that I got from the Dollar Tree. You can get them in a pack of 5. And I just cut off the little stars on the top and sanded those rough edges down. Then I am going to take that antique wax from Waverly again to paint these trees. Again, I'm just going over it, and then I will wipe off the excess with a paper towel, and I just did this for all 3 trees. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I created these decals in my Cricut design space. These are ones that I personally made myself, so if you are interested in those, definitely let me know. You can contact me on my Facebook and my Instagram account to purchase decals that I create. So I'm just going to lay all these out. These trees were a little bit too long and I didn't want anything hanging off the edges, so I just cut off little pieces of the tree on the inside. You wouldn't even be able to tell because I'm going to have one tree on top. So I'm just going ahead and applying my decal, just putting it where I want it, smoothing it down, and then removing that transfer tape. I loved the different colors, the black and the red combined with the antique wax and the white and the distressed. I loved it all. So I'm just going to add all of my decals on here, and then once I have gotten those positioned the way that I like it, again here, another one of my children needing their doll's hair done, their little trolls. She wanted its hair done. So I had to stop to do that before I could continue. So now I'm going to just hot glue my trees down. Like I said, I'm just going to put 2 on the bottom, and then I will put 1 on top of those. And that is how that part turned out. I thought it turned out super cute. And then as far as the embellishments to the top, I got this little pick from Walmart. It was 98 cents. And I'm just going to tear it apart, cut it apart, and I'm going to position it the way that I wanted to. And I'm going to hot glue it to the top of my sign. And I took a couple of those berries and also hot glued those down. And then I took this ribbon that I believe I got this from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to tie a simple bow and hot glue it in the middle. And that is how that turned out.
Empty inside, 'cause all of the presents are still by the tree. They don't mean a thing till he's here with me. If you know where he is, please give him a ride, and I will wait here by the candlelight. But his love is all I need, and my love I can guarantee. So please, Santa, bring back.
And for this next project, you are going to take some white poster that you can get from the Dollar Tree. You can get them for 50 cents a piece, and you are going to make a little cone. I have seen these little trees at all the stores. I've seen other people do DIYs, and I wanted to make my own because I thought they were so stinking cute. So you're just going to make yourself a little cone. You're going to cut the bottom so that it sits flat. Now I got this jute rope from Joann's, but you can get this from the Dollar Tree as well. They come, I believe, in a 9-foot roll. And I'm going to hot glue it all the way around the bottom of the cone, and then I'm going to start wrapping it around the cone itself. You don't have to hot glue the entire thing. You can do a little hot glue and then start wrapping, and then a little hot glue and then wrapping, and it gets easier to do that as you go. And I just wrapped this around the entire cone. When I got to the top, I basically just kept wrapping it around, stuck some hot glue down in that middle, and then just pushed the rope down into the middle. After I'm done that, I'm going to take these little berries that you can get from Hobby Lobby. I know they also have some at Walmart, but I love these because they were sparkly. And I'm just going to wrap that around my tree and hot glue that in place. And then I'm going to take some more ribbon that I got from Walmart. This is the same ribbon as the previous project, but just in a different color. And I'm going to make the exact same bow that I made in that other project, just taking a piece and making it into a loop, and then making my tails and then tying it around with some twine. And I am going to hot glue that to the top of my tree. I picked up these socks from the Target dollar spot. I thought that they were really cute. They aren't necessarily Christmassy, but I loved the color and the polka dots. I took one of these old white socks that I had, I filled it with rice, and then I added that sock into this sock, just giving it a couple layers, tied it with a rubber band, and cut off the top of the sock. After I'm done doing that, I got this fur from Amazon. I got 3 different colors and I thought they were so cute. It's just a faux craft kind of fur. I'll have it linked down below, and I just marked where I needed to cut it. Now there is kind of tricky cutting this because you don't want to cut through the fur on the front, so I tried using my little craft knife at first and that didn't go very well, and so I took my rotary blade and I just started pressing down enough to where I could hear it cutting through the back piece of the fabric. I would do that, and then I would take my little craft knife and I would just kind of pick through it and cut off the little strings, and I just basically worked my way around until the whole thing was cut out. Then you're just gonna pull your little piece of fur out, add some hot glue to the top, and hot glue that to your little gnome's body. I also flip up the beard and add some hot glue onto the sock itself just so that it's a little bit more secure. Now I take that other portion of the sock that we cut off previously and I'm going to use that for my little gnome's hat. Like I said, I loved the gray brim of it and I just thought it looked like a cute little beanie, and that's what I was going for. So I just started adding some glue around the brim. I made sure to leave enough room that I was able to tuck his little nose underneath the hat a little bit. I added some polyfill to his hat, just kind of moving it around and positioning it to where his hat looked full. I added some of this microfiber cloth that you can get from the Dollar Tree just for the little top of his hat. I just hot glued that right down and wrapped it around the end of his hat. I folded the top portion of the hat over and hot glued that down. Now I'm going to take a little wood bead that I got from Amazon. I'm going to spread his beard a little bit so that I can put the bead on. I kind of tuck it underneath the top of the hat and hot glue the hat down over top of the bead. And that is it for this cute little gnome. I absolutely love the way that he turned out. I'm going to take these again, they're 2x4s. We just cut them on an angle at the top. I can't remember the exact angle, but if you just cut them at an angle, they'll just look like little houses. So I just took some Waverly chalk paint and plaster, and I'm going to paint the entire thing. Now you don't necessarily have to paint the front all the way because we will be putting scrap paper on it. So that's not too big of a deal. After these dry, I did get this scrapbook paper from Hobby Lobby. Like I said, one of them came in a pack of paper that you can get, and the other one you can just get as a single piece of paper. And I'm going to trace out these houses with the paper. I'm just putting them in the corner, marking them down, and then cutting them out. And then after you are done doing that, you're going to take some Mod Podge and you are going to put those right on down. Like I said before, I like to let my first layer of Mod Podge completely dry before I go over the top with it. It's just so that it creates less bubbles, it creates less wrinkles. That's just what I have found to work for me. So I just put those down, I wait for them to dry. While those dried, I cut out my decals. And then I am going to go back to the wood blocks and I'm going to sand them down. This takes off any excess paper that is around the edges. Someone mentioned that you could also use a nail file. That works great as well. I don't have one on hand at the moment, but if I do, I will definitely be trying that out. So I just roughed up the sides a little bit and all of the corners just to give it a little bit more of a distressed look, give it some definition, and I did this to both blocks. Once I'm done with that, I am going to Mod Podge around the sides and the front of the little houses. This makes it so that the paper stays down all the way. I want to make sure that the edges are completely stuck. So after I'm done with this, I'm going to cut out my decals. Now these decals were super distressed. I think that they're called Grunge Christmas decals. So they had a ton of tiny little pieces. Sorry for all the wiggling. My 10-month-old thought that he needed to be sitting on my lap while I did this. So he sat and played, had some little entertainment. So I tried going through and weeding out all the little excess pieces. It was going to take me forever. So I did try to use some painter's tape and very carefully go over it to try to pick up those little pieces. It did work pretty well. It didn't get everything. So I did still have to go through and weed out some more pieces, but I mean, you can see here how much it pulls up. So if you ever have any little intricate designs like this, maybe try some tape. I've also seen people use lint rollers on them. I didn't have one of those on hand, so I did just use some painter's tape and it worked pretty good. After that, I'm going to take my transfer tape. I do get this from Expressions Vinyl. I've had a lot of questions about that. And I am just going to place my decal onto my little house. I just take it, place it where I want it. I use my little scraper to make sure that the decal sticks. And I just peel the transfer tape off. And I did this for both the tree and for the little Santa. For the Santa, the little ball on the end of his hat, if I wanted this centered, it was going to put his head off center. So I did kind of move his head more to the center, and then I did wrap the little fluffy ball, whatever you want to call it, to the side. And I actually like the way that it turned out. It didn't bother me that it wasn't, you know, on the front of it. You could still see it if you looked from the side. And then after that, I did take some Mod Podge just to make sure that my decals were going to stay in place and they were going to be permanent. And it just sealed the vinyl and the paper and everything else together. After that dried, I did take some twine and I wrapped that around my little houses. I just went around twice, hot gluing on the back and then wrapping it around and hot gluing on the back again. I did do this for both of my little houses. And then I tied a simple little bow just with my twine. I looped it around my fingers twice. And then I made sure to leave a good amount of excess twine so that my little tails could be long. Now for the middle, you just tie it in a knot twice. And then after you're done with that, you can play with the little loops so that they are centered. And then I just cut off the excess string. That's really all there is to it. It's so easy to create these cute little simple bows. I love putting them on all of my decor items. And I thought that the excess tails at the bottom turned out so dang cute. Taking this canvas frame that I've had for quite a while. It was a canvas that came from Ross with a cute little saying on it, and I've had it for several years now, and it was just sitting in my closet collecting dust. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna repurpose this and make it into a cute sign. So I am just taking my Waverly wax in antique, and I'm just going to cover the entire thing in that color. And then after I was done with that, I took this Peace on Earth little sign that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to paint the majority of it in my white Waverly chalk paint. I'm going to leave the word on blank so that I can paint that with my Waverly wax and antique. I just loved giving it that kind of two-tone look, kind of separates the words a little bit, so I really like the way that this turned out. And then after I was done painting it, I did go through and distress it a little bit. So where the peace and earth words are, I used my Waverly wax in antique to give it a little bit of distressing, just to kind of make it so that the words popped out a little bit more so you could see them a little bit clearer. And then with the word on, I used my white chalk paint to distress around the edges of those. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm basically just doing a dry brush technique onto the words where all the edges are, like I said, just to make it stand out a little bit. And I really loved the effect that it gave it. And then I did take my white chalk paint and kind of distress around the edges of the frame as well. I mostly just focused on the edges themselves, but I did go onto the surface area of the frame as well, just a little bit, just to give it kind of a distressed looking frame. And then I'm going to take this scrapbook paper that I got from Hobby Lobby. I got this in a pack of Christmas paper from there, and I am just taking two pieces and taping them together just because they were not big enough to fit my frame all for just one piece of paper. So I'm just going to trace out the frame, and then I'm going to cut my paper out. Now this thing is absolutely awesome. I'm cutting canvas right here to put on the back of my sign, and it cut this no problem. I'll have it linked down below in my description box, but I'm just going to hot glue the paper to the back of the frame. And then after I'm done with that, like I said, I took that canvas that I had left over from other canvases that I took the actual canvas off the frame, and I cut those down, and I'm going to cover the back with it just to make the back a little bit more sturdy. Now you could use poster board, but in my case, I am horrible at trying to cut out poster board to the correct size, and it was driving me nuts that it wasn't perfectly inside there with the poster board, so I decided to do it this way instead. So I'm just taking that canvas and I am hot gluing it around, and I did need to use two little canvas pieces. to cover the entire back. And I feel like this gives it a lot nicer of a finished look on the back too. So this worked perfectly. And then after I'm done going ahead and hot gluing it around, I do use a stapler to go around, and I basically just felt where the previous staples had been and tried not to staple right there. So just to make it a little bit more secure, I did use my staple to get this paper and canvas all nice and stuck down there. And then after that, I used my hot glue to put the Peace on Earth sign on there. I'm already loving how it turned out, but I felt like it needed a little bit more. So I took these picks that I got from Walmart. They were 98 cents each. And I'm just hot gluing them right to the top. And then after that, I'm going to take some buffalo check ribbon that I got from, I believe, Hobby Lobby. And I'm going to tie a bow with it. So I'm going to do 2 loops, one smaller and one bigger, for my bow pieces, and then I will cut some tails off for it. So you can kind of see what I'm doing here. You're probably going to be better watching it than listening to how I explain it, because I'm probably not explaining it very well. But I'm going to bunch those all together and then take some twine and tie a knot in the back. I kind of fluff it up and get it how I want it, and then I'm going to take that twine and wrap it around the middle to give it a cute little twine middle, basically. And I thought this turned out really cute. I'm going to ducktail the ends and hot glue this right to the middle between those 2 picks. You are going to need 2 scrap pieces of wood. These are 2x4s, and I cut one to 8 inches and one to 12 inches, and then you're going to cut a 15-degree angle on both of them, both sides starting from the middle and then going down. I taped both of the wood blocks with some painter's tape, and I painted both of the bottoms in some white Waverly chalk paint, and then I painted one gnome hat in the Waverly chalk paint in lacquer, and then the other one is in the apple barrel acrylic paint in arbor green. I then took some of my Craft Smart stain in brown, and I just began distressing the gnome. I went all over the hat, I went all over the body. I did make sure to not get the little face in there. I wanted that to stay plain. And I just did this to both of them, and then I took some sandpaper to each and I just began sanding them down, mostly the edges, so that there was a little bit more detail and dimension to the gnomes. I wanted the natural wood to show through. I then took this fabric fur, again, got it from Amazon, and I loved the red to it, and I thought that it would look so cute with the green hat gnome. And I'm just going to cut out his beard. I'm then going to cut out a strip for a mustache and for some eyebrows. So you can see I just cut them into little small pieces. And I'm just going to begin to attach the mustache by hot gluing it down. I will hot glue the nose on top, and then I will hot glue the eyebrows on afterwards. And then I followed the exact same steps with my red hat gnome. Just added some fur for his beard, added some for his mustache, added his nose, and then added his eyebrows. And I also went through and added some hot glue around the nose and pushed the fur up around the nose just so it hid that hole in the bottom, and then it kind of blended that nose in with the rest of his face. These are little trees that you can get from the Dollar Tree. They have stakes on them for your yard, and I thought they were such a cute shape, so I decided to pick some of these up, and I'm going to go ahead and remove all the glitter using a heavy grit sandpaper. I'm going to remove that stake, and I'm going to take these beads that I got off of Amazon, and I'm going to start cutting them in half. I have seen so many pieces where beads are outlining the trees, especially at Hobby Lobby. I've seen several trees like that, so I decided to make one on my own. So I'm just taking my miter shears and cutting these right in half. They cut super easy. I hardly had to apply any pressure at all. And then I'm just going to begin hot gluing them around my tree, just outlining it. Took a little bit of time, but it wasn't hard to do at all. I just had my hot glue gun and I just basically outlined the entire tree. And then I decided to paint this white. So one thing I would mention is it's probably a lot easier if you paint this white before you put the beads on, and then you're not having to try to get into all the little crevices of each little tiny bead to try to cover up that green. So don't follow what I'm doing. Follow what I'm saying. Paint the tree white first, at least one coat, and then put your beads on after that. And then I took my Waverly chalk paint in truffle and I painted the star and the stem in that color. And then I went through and slightly distressed the beads, dry brushed them with that same truffle paint. I love the way it makes the beads pop off of the tree. I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. And then I'm taking some of these tumbling tower blocks that you can get from the Dollar Tree and I'm making a little stand with them. So I am just hot gluing two together in a set of two, painting that with my Waverly chalk paint in truffle just to match the trunk of the tree. And I am just hot gluing one set on the front and one set on the back. Like I said, it just makes a cute little stand so that your tree can stand up right. After I'm done that, I'm going to take my steel chalk paint from Waverly and I'm taking these two little bells that I got in a pack from the Dollar Tree and I am just kind of dabbing this on there. I wanted the shininess of the bells to go down, make them look a little bit more rustic. And I'm going to take some twine and make myself a little bow. I just take this around 2 fingers, loop it around about 4 times, tie a knot with some jute in the middle, and that's it. It's so easy to make little twine bows like this, and I think they are so cute. After I get that all tied, I'm going to take my little bells and I'm going to string them onto some of the tails that were on the bow, and I'm going to hang one a little bit lower and then the other one a little bit higher so that they fell at different lengths. And then I'm just going to hot glue that right to the tree. And I thought this was so stinking cute, especially with the long tails of the bow and the little bells. I absolutely love how this project turned out. You can buy these wood stir sticks, paint stir sticks from, I believe, Walmart. I think I got mine from Lowe's. You can buy a pack of 10 of them for about $1. So it's a super great deal, especially if you are looking to do some crafts with them. So first I printed out myself a star. This is about a 6-inch star. I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. Now this is like a sticker paper basically that I'm using right here. You do not have to use that. That is in fact the only kind of printer paper that I had at the moment. I had no regular printer paper, so I used this sticker paper, which actually did turn out quite well because I could just stick down the star to the stir sticks instead of having to hold the star there. So you can see I am just lining up my stir sticks and then I'm going to trace that star out. So my idea for this was to create a kind of palette look star sign. You could also use popsicle sticks, which might also be a lot easier than what I'm doing right here, but this is the way that I decided to go. So I'm just taking my miter shears, which I will link down in the description box below. This actually worked really great for this because you have this little lever at the bottom where you can change the angle of the cut, which is kind of perfect. I'm just going and cutting where I drew the lines on. Now, sometimes you do have to go over it a little bit, and the paint stir sticks did kind of chip a little bit, so I did have to use some scissors. Occasionally I had to use my little crafting knife to kind of score it first. This isn't the best kind of wood to use with your miter shears, but the miter shears in some instances, like you can see right there, it cut perfectly. So it really, I feel like it depended on the paint stir stick itself. I don't know why some cut easier than others, but it is what it is. Now, I will tell you that this project did take me quite a while, and that's mostly because I messed up several times. So just try to pay attention to what you're doing instead of watching the TV while you're crafting, and you will not take, you know, a good hour and a half on this project. So I am just going through and cutting, like I said, all of the lines where they are. And this ended up kind of being like a little puzzle that I had to try to figure out which piece went where towards the end, but I thought that this was really fun. After you get all of your stir sticks cut out, you are going to want to sand them down because there will be some rough edges and a little bit of, you know, chips here and there. So that's one thing that I would recommend. So here I am just putting it all together, making sure I have the pieces in the right spot. I'm going to take my Craft Smart stain. This is just in the Barnwood Brown. I love this stuff because it dries really fast and it's not stinky like normal stain. And I actually really love the color of this stain. It's more of like a neutral brown instead of where the wax from Waverly, the antique wax, is more of like a warm tone brown. So I really love this stuff. I love just some neutral brown decor in my home. So I just go through and paint all of those in that stain, wiping off the excess. And then after I'm done doing that, I am going to distress it with some Waverly white chalk paint. I'm going to go around all the edges, and then I'll take each piece individually just to kind of give it a little bit more dimension so you can actually see that they are individual pieces. I got this sign from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to go ahead. They have like little metal pieces that are sticking out at them. I just removed those with some pliers. Now I'm taking some brown paper just to cut myself out a template. I had a sweet subscriber mention this little tip to me, so I'm just taking a piece of paper, measuring it down inside, and then I'm going to use that as the template for my scrapbook paper. I did get my scrapbook paper from Hobby Lobby. That's where I will get all of my scrapbook paper in this video, and I'm just using my paper trimmer to trim this. This is seriously the coolest thing. It cuts my crafting time in half rather than having to use scissors, and it makes straight cuts super easy and simple. I love it. So I'm going to take some elephant chalk paint from Waverly, and I am going to go around the edges a little bit just because I knew that I didn't cut it perfectly. I cannot get my cuts 100%. I don't know what it is. If you can, perfect. If not, a little trick, I'm just painting it in the elephant color just to make sure that when I put the paper on, you will not see the white underneath the edges. Now I'm going to go ahead and take some Waverly wax in antique, and I'm just kind of distressing the frame a little bit. I mostly did this because there were some spots in the sign that just weren't great looking. It was kind of uneven in color, so I decided to just kind of distress it and make it all look cohesive. And then after that, I'm going to take some Mod Podge and I'm going to Mod Podge my scrapbook paper down. Now, one thing I don't do is Mod Podge on top. I always wait until the bottom layer is dry first before I go on top. That way you get less wrinkling and, you know, making it look all wet and wrinkled. So I'm just taking my little Cricut smoothing tool and I am just smoothing out all those edges. After I'm done doing that, I do take my sandpaper to the star just to rough it up a little bit. And then after that, I am going to just glue it down. I do start with the middle pieces. I did glue it down a little crooked, but you know, I'm not perfect. I do not make my crafts perfectly all the time. And since it's for me, I wasn't too worried about it. So like I said, I just start in the middle and work my way out. Now after I'm done with this, I did toy around with several different ways to finish it. I had the little berry garland all twirled up and I thought I was going to use that. In the end, I just go with some ribbon. I tied this ribbon into a cute little bow and I just hot glued that on the front. I'm just kind of slowing it down for you so you can see how I make my bows. Super, super easy. And I just hot glued that right to the front. I ducktailed the ends and just hot glued it down.
Let's go outside, the snow is falling down and every child is having so much fun. The snowman is twice the size as me with a smile as quirky as mine. We're holding.
For this next project, I took these mini tree cones that you can get from Hobby Lobby. They are $4.99, but I got them half off. And I am going to take this little styrofoam ball that I had covered in jute a while back, and I'm going to cover it with some gray fleece. And then I'm taking more of a different color of fur that I got. Again, I got this from Amazon, and I'm going to do the same process as I did in the first two projects, where I measure out the length of the fur that I want. I basically just measured from ear to ear of what you would assume where the ears would be, and I cut them out that way. And after I did that, I just hot glued that down to the little gnome body. Now, if you are actually paying attention to what you are doing, you will add the cone before you add your material. I completely forgot to add the cone to the top of the gnome body, so I begin attaching the fabric when I should have done that after the cone was already applied. I added some hot glue to make my ends look more finished to the two sides where the hat was going to meet the body and to the back seam. I added my cone and then I just began hot gluing the fabric to the cone, cutting off any excess pieces that needed cut off. And after I did that, I just added my little gnome nose the same way I did the other two.
To keep each other warm while we stand and watch a choir performing all the Christmas songs that we love. Yeah, all the Christmas songs that we love. And in a while we're gonna go inside and drink our chocolate by the fire. 'Cause all I want is to spend this day with you. Let me give you
Next, I'm going to take these two pieces of wood. These are 2x4s. One is cut to a square and then one is cut a little bit longer into a rectangle. I will have the dimensions listed in my description box. And I again am just going in with that same Craft Smart brown stain. I wanted all of my pieces to be cohesive and to match, make them look like they're a part of a set. So that is why I do use some of the same materials and colors. So I'm just going to stain that and then distress all the edges with some sandpaper so that you can see that natural wood show through. And then I'm going to take that same red buffalo check ribbon. I did get this from Hobby Lobby. And I'm going to make these into little presents. I thought these were so stinking cute. I just hot glued the ribbon down together and then I tied a simple bow and hot glued that to the top of the ribbon where the ribbons cross. And then I'm going to make a little tag for it. So I contemplated and back and forth of what I wanted to add to it because I knew it looked too plain. So I took this scrap paper. I got this in a pack from Joann's and I am just cutting out a little tag. I used one of my wooden paint sticks as a little template for a rectangle and then I just angled the top pieces. Then I'm going to take my red paint marker and write the word Santa. I did leave the other one blank just so you could see what they looked like blank and then with some words on it. I'm going to take some twine and tie that around the block, and then I'm going to take some more of these beads. Do basically the same thing that I did with the tree, just loop some beads through some twine and then tie a knot so that they don't come off. And then I will add the tag along with the beads. I did glue down that first bead just so that it stayed where I wanted it to be, and then I did hot glue the twine to the back so that those stay in place, and then I added my little tag to the front. Now for the second little present, I'm going to take this burlap ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to cut it in half and use both of those as the little ribbon for this present. I did kind of shred the sides. I just removed some of the pieces of twine from there so it looked a little bit more rough, not as such of a clean edge, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to take that same red buffalo check ribbon and I am going to tie a cute little bow on the front, and then I do hot glue the tails to the back. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to do basically the same thing that I did with my first one. I got a couple of beads, put it on some twine, and this time I hot glued the beads to the tag itself. Then I hot glued the tag down and then wrapped the remaining twine from the beads around the present and then just hot glued that in the back. And that was it. I thought these turned out so dang cute. There are so many different ways you can finish them.
Moment we'll fill with love and joy. So beautiful, kissing on a mistletoe's baby with you. I don't need any presents as long as I spend this day with you. So beautiful, kissing on a mistletoe's baby with you. Ooh. Making plans for what we're gonna do. I feel so blessed that I can be with you, 'cause God knows that
So for this next project, I took this autumn little words that I got from the Target dollar spot during the fall season, and I thought this would be so fun to turn it into a double-sided word sign. And I am going to paint it in the Waverly chalk paint in lacquer. So I just paint 5 of these in that color, and then for the 6th one I am going to paint it white. So I'm going to take these Dollar Tree poster stickers and I am going to paint them white with that same Waverly chalk paint. I did do 2 coats of it. One thing I will suggest is pulling up the stickers before the paint dries, because I had some issue with it looking a little chippy around the outside of the stickers. I can just easily scratch off the paint, but I would just say take off the stickers before you let them dry. So I just went through and roughed up the blocks a little bit, took some sandpaper to them, and then I did take this stencil that I got last year from Joann's, and on that 6th block I did do a little cute tree stencil on it, and then I did just go through again and rough it up with some sandpaper just to make it look a little bit more aged and worn. So you can see here I'm taking off the stickers. I did place them onto some wax paper just to make sure that they wouldn't stick, and that worked perfectly. And then I did go through and put them on each of my little blocks. Now the M was a little bit too big for this block, so I did have to trim it down a little bit, but in the end it looked perfectly fine. And then as you can see, I have to kind of scrape the stickers a little bit just to kind of get the excess paint off of there. So again, take the stickers off before they dry. It'll save you a lot of trouble. And then after I'm done doing this, I am going to go through and give it a little bit more of a sand. This worked perfectly. The stickers stayed right in place. So I mostly just wanted to get the excess paint off the stickers, but then it ended up distressing the stickers, which I thought looked awesome. So I'm going ahead and seal it with some Mod Podge to make sure that my stickers stay on the little blocks. And I also Mod Podged the tree block just to give it the same finish as the other blocks.
For you, just wanna hold you close. You know the stars are shining just for you. Let's take a walk and we can follow the moonlight till we reach a place we can stay. Maybe kiss a bit and dream away. And in a while we're gonna go inside and drink our chocolate by the fire. 'Cause all I want is to spend this day with you. Let me give you.
Now for this next project, I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in ink and white, and I'm going to take these Jenga blocks that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I guess they're called tumbling tower blocks there, and I'm going to paint 3 of them white and 3 of them black. I've been seeing these little ornaments all over Pinterest, and I thought they were so dang cute that I had to make my own. And I just went through and distressed all the edges to them, like I said, just to make them a little bit more rustic. If you have watched my videos, you know that I like my decor to be rustic and distressed looking, so that is what I did there. Now I'm going to take these beads that I got from Amazon, I'll link those down below, and I just put a little bit of tape on some twine and I looped those through. I did go through, as you can see, and I drilled some holes in the Jenga blocks. I was doing it by myself, so I wasn't able to record it for you, but I did it all on my own. I'm very proud of myself, and I just looped some twine through there, tied a knot, and then I added my beads, tied a knot for the beads at the top, and then tied a little loop to use as the hanger for the ornaments. So it's pretty easy. If you can use a drill, then you can probably do this project. I attempted to draw a tree freehanding. I am not the best freehand artist out there. In fact, I'm not very good at all, but I wanted to try my hand at drawing a cute little tree. It worked out okay. It's not the best looking, but hey, you know, for me and my skills, I was pretty proud of it. If you can do it a lot better, then by all means, go ahead and draw yourself a cute little tree on one of the blocks. And then I did another tree, just a different kind of style on another block. And then for the other ones, I did use my Cricut to print out or to cut out some words. You can use stickers. I just didn't have any stickers that were small enough for these blocks. They're about 1/2 of an inch tall with the way that I'm going to put them on there. So none of my stickers fit. So I have a Cricut, so I just used what I had and I just cut out some words. I'm gonna go ahead and put the words on the remaining ornaments that I have, the 4 here. I just used this transfer tape. I have been getting a lot of questions about what transfer tape I use. I get this from Expressions Vinyl. You can get it in a 6-inch roll or a 12-inch roll. I have both, and I find the 6-inch roll comes in handy for little projects like this. And it's just the clear transfer tape. I personally really love it. It works awesome. So I'm gonna go ahead and just stick all of my words down onto the blocks, white on the black ones, and then black on the white ornaments. I thought these turned out so cute. Like I said, I've seen little ornaments like this all over Pinterest, and I had to try it for myself. If you think about it, each ornament probably cost me less than $1, considering you get a whole pack of Jenga blocks for $1 and beads that are pretty cheap as well.
Christmas, a moment we'll fill with love and joy. So beautiful, kissing on a mistletoe, baby, with you. I don't need any presents as long as I spend this day with you. So beautiful, kissing on a mistletoe, baby, with you. Ooh. Ooh. And in a while we're gonna
I got this gnome for the holidays sign from, like I said, the Dollar Tree, but I just got it for the gnome alone. I thought he was super cute, but I wanted to give him a little bit of a makeover, so I started off by taking off his nose, and I was going to sand the glitter off of his beard, and then it ripped the paper when I took his nose off, so then I just ended up taking the paper off, and then it just turned into a bigger mess than I thought it was going to, so I decided to flip him over onto the back, and I am just basically freehanding the rest of his beard. It actually took me quite a while to do that. I am not a very good artist when it comes to freehanding things, so I did look up pictures online, and then I just kind of tried my best to get it to match what I was seeing. So I just took my time with some white chalk paint to go around all those lines that I freehanded, and I am just using the white chalk paint from Waverly. And then for the pants and feet and the hat, I am going in with Waverly chalk paint in lacquer. So again, I just took my time on a small detailed brush to go around the beard with the red, and then same with the top of his hat. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't making any big mistakes. And then I also like that you can kind of still see the pencil on the beard. I feel like it gives it more detail, kind of makes it pop a little bit more, if that makes sense. So a little happy accident is basically what that turned out to be. And then I did take some steel chalk paint from Waverly, and I just used it on this little detailed brush, and I'm just kind of giving him a little bit more detail to his beard, kind of, you know, how a beard isn't just plain white, you know, you got little gray hairs in there too. So that's what I did with that, just to give him a little bit more definition. And then after I was done with that, I took my sandpaper and I am roughing this guy up. I am going to go around all of the edges. I'm also going to go throughout the entire gnome itself, just to give him a very rustic look, very scratched up and you know, old kind of looking. So I'm just taking the nose, hot gluing it right back on there, and then I'm just going to do the same thing with the little pom-pom that was on the end of his hat, and I'm just going to glue that right back onto the little gnome. And then after I'm done with that, I'm going to take these planks that I got from the Dollar Tree. They come in a 6-pack, and I took 3 of them. I'm going to basically stain them in the Waverly wax in antique. I love using this as a stain, and I feel like it turns out super pretty. So that is what I'm doing here with all 3 planks, just wiping on the stain wax, whatever you want to call it, with a brush, and then wiping off the excess with a paper towel. And then for the frame, I am going to use a stretched canvas. I already had taken the canvas off of this frame previously, so I just grabbed it to use it. I'm going to paint it in my white Waverly chalk paint, and I'm not doing, you know, a super great job at painting. Basically just, you know, giving it a one good coat is really all it needed. And then after I'm done with that, I'm also going to take that Waverly wax paint, Waverly wax, in antique, whatever you want to call it. If I'm having issues talking throughout all of my videos, so just, you know, ignore that fact. But I'm just going to go through and basically give it a little bit of a rustic look, dry brushing on there, making sure to hit all of the sides and corners really well, and then I just kind of dry brushed around the rest of it. And then I'm also taking my sandpaper to this as well. I wanted to make sure I got those corners nice and sandpapered, whatever you want to call it. I wanted the natural grain of the wood to show through, so I just took my sandpaper, kind of blended the wax in with the white paint, and then now I'm going to take some hot glue sticks and glue all these planks together. just 2 on the back where the seam is was enough to make these stay. And you know, if you have some issues, make sure you just, you know, getting that hot glue on both sides of the planks. So after I'm done with that, I'm going to hot glue a little line around the planks, and I'm going to set the frame right on top. Make yourself a cute little sign. And then I'm going to take my gnome and put him right in the center of that. And that is it.
I'm gonna go inside and drink our chocolate by the fire. 'Cause all I want is to spend this day with you. Let me give you a Christmas moment we'll fill with love and joy. Loving so beautiful, kissing on a mistletoe, baby, with you. I don't need any presents as long as I spend this day with you.
I'm taking these woodcraft cubes that you can get from the Dollar Tree. Now, I was kind of just winging it when I did this, and I wasn't sure exactly how this was going to turn out, but I thought this turned out so cute. And I also thought that this would be really fun to make with kids or grandkids, just something fun that they can paint and glue together. And I definitely think I'm going to try this with my 2 girls. I think that they would have so much fun. And then you could write their names and the year on the back of them. I just think that this would be such a fun little craft to do with your kids and grandkids. So I'm just taking those wood cubes and I am going to start assembling them into the shape of a tree. I started with 5 on the bottom, then 4, and then 3, and then 2, and then 1. You can kind of get the gist of what I'm doing here, just assembling it into the shape of a tree. After I've got it all assembled, I am going to paint it in my Waverly chalk paint in white. I'm going to cover the entire thing in that paint. And then I also take 1 more cube and paint it white and stick it right in the middle of the bottom of the tree so that it makes a little stem. And then I'm going to take a nail file. One of my sweet subscribers mentioned this trick to distress, especially right here. Sandpaper would have been pretty difficult to distress in those little corners. So the nail file definitely worked really, really well. So I'm taking some twine and I'm hot gluing it to the back of the stem, and then I'm going to wrap the twine around the stem, and then I start wrapping it around the tree itself, just in a couple cross patterns. It really doesn't have to be in this kind of pattern. You can do it in basically any kind of pattern that you want. Just wrap it around that tree and then hot glue it to the back. And then I'm going to take, again, one of these little wood cutouts that I got from the Target dollar spot. This is in a little wreath, and I just stuck this right on top. I took that same ribbon that I used in the previous project, tied it into a little loop, and then hot glued it down to the very top. And this is how my little cube tree ornament turned out.
Come joining us all, the feeling is here today.
Now for this next project, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take the white sock, fill it with some rice, and then I have this black fuzzy sock, and I am going to put this inside. Now I did double layer these ones because I didn't want the rice to fall out of the fuzzy sock. And then I am going to use a mop. So this is a full Dollar Tree gnome. You don't need any other products besides things that you can find from the Dollar Tree. You can find socks, you can find this mop, you can find rice. So I just had my husband break apart the top of the mop. I was not strong enough to do it, but leave it to my strong husband to break things apart for me. And then I just took the pieces of the mop, I folded them in half, and I just began hot gluing them all the way around the gnome's body. Now I took some leftover tree skirt that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I just began folding it around his head and hot gluing it down where I needed it to be. I wanted the edge to look seamless, so I did fold it over and hot glue it so that the seam in the back would look finished. I hot glued a little bit around the top of the tree skirt and then started attaching it to my gnome. And then I just added some polyfill again just to make his hat a little bit more full, have it be a little bit more sturdy, and then I just hot glued it shut. I took some of the excess fluff off of the tree skirt and I'm going to add that to the top of his hat. And then I'm going to fold that over and hot glue that down. And then I'm going to give him a little haircut. I just went around and cut all the pieces of the mop, trying to make them all even. I did not succeed. I'm no hairdresser, so it was a little uneven at parts, but I fix it later. So I just began untwirling all the pieces of the mop. I just take it from the very top and pull, and they all come apart really easy. You can see what I'm doing here. Just take it from the top, pull it apart, and just keep pulling all the pieces of each piece apart. It was really, really easy, but it was a bit of a time-consuming process. You could only add the mop to the front of where you wanted his beard, but I was going for more of a Santa gnome kind of look, and so I wanted the white beard and the white hair. After that, I just kind of trimmed him up, trying to make his hair a little bit more even, and then I added the nose just like I did with my other one. Just hot glued the nose down and hot glued the hat to the top of the nose.
Come on now, let's go, caroling through the snow all day. We've been good, but we can last. Hurry Christmas, hurry now. I can't wait to see what's under the Christmas.
So for this project, some of my footage got deleted and I'm just throwing this in as a little extra bonus. So I took this piece that I got from the Dollar Tree. It was like a shadow box and I basically just took it apart. I'll try to put a picture of what it looked like previously on the screen so that you can try to see it. But I just painted the frame with plaster from Waverly. I painted the background in truffle, and then those are popsicle sticks in the background. I used the antique wax for those. So I'm taking the back part of the shadow box and you can kind of see where it was like a little box, you know, all together. And it came apart when I was taking it out of the main part of the shadow box, and I just hot glued those together. I did cut down my popsicle sticks so that they would fit right into the shadow box, and I just hot glued all of those in place. There wasn't really much to it. I mean, I just measured it out, hot glued them down. I wish that I had the footage. That is now gone somehow. I don't know why that always happens to me, but it does. So I just thought this turned out way too cute to not show it, or else I probably wouldn't have put it in here. But I got this little truck ornament from the Dollar Tree that came in a pack of 4, and then I'm taking the red berry garland, popping the little red berries off of there, and hot gluing them to the tree. I just felt like the tree looked a little plain, and I wanted to, you know, jazz it up a little. So I'm just hot gluing those down to the tree. And then I'm going to take this little wood round that I had. It's just a little scrap piece of wood, and I needed to give the truck a little bit of lift off of the sign. So I'm just going to hot glue the tree to the truck, and then I'm going to hot glue the little scrap wood to the back of the truck and hot glue that down. And then I'm taking this white berry garland or cream that I got from Hobby Lobby. You can get basically this color from the Dollar Tree as well. And I just made a little wreath with it. I've done a very similar project with a pumpkin for fall, and I loved how that turned out, and so I had to make a little red truck version of it. So I just put the whole piece back together. I stuck the glass back inside the frame, and then I put the box back inside of the frame as well. It just popped right back in. And then I'm going to take some black buffalo check ribbon, tie a super simple bow, and I'm going to glue this right in the corner, and then I'm going to use the tails to frame out the frame. I thought this turned out super cute. I had contemplated putting it in the middle, but I didn't want the truck covered up, and I just thought this positioning of it was absolutely adorable. So I then took some twine and made another really simple bow, put that on top, and that is it.
For you and me, oh, little bear toys that cuddle and woo, dinosaurs, boats, and kitty cats too. Santa Claus is.
For my next project, I'm going to take this little sign that I also got from the Dollar Tree. I was going to take the paper off, and it ended up just being a little bit more of a mess than I anticipated. So I am just going to take some sandpaper and just sandpaper over the paper that was ripped, and then I'm going to paint over it with my Waverly paint in steel. And I'm just going to go over that entire thing, making sure that I got a couple good coats on there so that it would cover up the purple and it would, cover up those words. And while that is drying, I'm going to take these paint stir sticks that you can get from Lowe's or Home Depot. You can get them in a pack of like 3, I believe, for $1. And I'm just going through and I'm going to use my miter shears to cut myself some pieces from this popsicle stick, from this paint stir stick. My goodness. And I am going to cut myself out 4 pieces. So this was a little difficult to do, but it wasn't too bad. You had to press it about 4 times on all 4 corners or all 4 sides. And then I'm going to take some sandpaper and sand down the edges. Now I did make sure that these were all about an inch shorter than the one before it. I wanted to make a little Christmas tree. For the top one, it was a little bit smaller than an inch in total from the other piece, if that makes sense. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. But I just wanted to use the remainder of that flat edge so then I didn't have to get out a new stir stick. And then I'm going to paint all the edges in that same steel color just so that they matched up with the sign. And then I'm going to take this scrapbook paper that I got from Hobby Lobby. I just bought them in the scrapbook packs. I did end up changing my mind on some of them, so you will see that there are a couple that I did not show. And one thing that I don't know where my footage went for it is I just took some Mod Podge and I laid it down on the stir sticks, and then I laid the paper on top of it. I cut around it, waited for that to dry, and then as you can see, I'm taking my sandpaper and I am basically sanding off the excess paper. It comes off really easy when you do it this way. And then I also wanted it to give it a little bit more of a rough look, so then I also did extra sanding around the corners. This technique is super great to get off all of those leftover pieces that you couldn't get with scissors. It gives you a nice flat edge and I love it. Then I'm going to take some Mod Podge and go over the top and the sides just to make sure that that paper is nice and stuck down there so it doesn't come up later. And then with the sign, I was feeling like it just wasn't, I don't know, there was something about it that I wasn't liking. I decided to take my antique wax and go in all of the grooves and corners of the sign. I feel like this really helped the sign to look aged and rustic, and it also, I feel like, kind of blended the background to the frame, if that makes any sense. So I just took my antique wax and I went over all of the sides and the frame part, and then I also did that on the outside and to the corners just so that all kind of match and blended well together. And then after I did that, I took this little stem that you can get from the Dollar Tree in a pack of little branch stems. I took my miter shears and I just cut it in half so that I could use that as a little trunk to my Christmas tree. I hot glued that down, and then I hot glued all of my little plank Christmas tree parts in place. And there wasn't a ton of room. There was, I kind of played with the idea of spacing them out a little bit or kind of make them go in opposite directions, if that makes any sense. But there wasn't a ton of room, so I decided to just, make them all straight. And then I took a little star that I also got from the Dollar Tree, I believe last year, is one of those little stickers, and I just popped that right on top. And then after I'm done doing that, I'm taking this garland, this berry garland that I got from Hobby Lobby. I've used these in a couple of my videos and I absolutely love them. I think they're super pretty. So I just cut out 3 strips and then I'm just going to hot glue them in between each of my little planks just to give it a little bit more of a decorative touch. And I thought this turned out super cute.
I know the Santa Claus is coming.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button before you leave. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And I will see you in my next one. Bye.
Magic in the air.